Hello, this is Gabrielle from Agua Astrology, and today we're going to talk about the steps that you should take from an energetic perspective as you formally license your business. So, before you go ahead and license the paperwork with whichever state that you're formally licensing your business in, you want to consider things from an energetic perspective. And one thing that you can do is cast an astrology chart to essentially put forth the energy or better understand the energy of the business that you are bringing to life. So the casted chart is official from the moment that you go ahead and begin the legal process of formally licensing a business. So when I built my business about a year ago, officially almost, I wanted to cast a chart because I wanted to better understand what kind of energy I was working with and really what the spirit of my business wanted to embody. And I also wanted to understand, for forward thinking purposes and long-term purposes, potential transits that would affect certain parts of the business. For example, the types of people I'd be working with, times when there would be peak revenue, times to consider where revenue might be in flux. Also, truly what kind of energy the business was also attracting. And by that, I mean, what kinds of people would I be working with? And what kinds of people would be coming to me, and what kind of service would they really be not only seeking, but receiving as well. So my business is personally very scorpionic. And what I mean by that is I see a lot of forms of addiction and abuse and death. As a psychic astrologer and a trained medium, numerologist, and a Reiki practitioner, to name a couple of things that I do, I really do see quite one end of the spectrum as opposed to the other. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of extremes that I often see in my business, from the addiction, the death, and the abuse standpoint. And so I licensed my business when there was an aspect in the sky called Pluto trining the South Node. And that essentially means that there's a lot of releasing coming out of the services that one might receive with me after they've had a reading with me or a healing or something of that nature. And I did know that once I licensed my business, there was going to be a potential theme that I would say, and that being like abuse and just a rebirth and letting go of sorts, because the South Node represents releasing and just coming into a rebirth, as I just said. So one thing that you can consider before you go ahead and formally license a business, and by that I mean like go ahead and initiate the process of signing the legal paperwork and paying for that and licensing everything properly with the state that you're in, you can think about the times in which you're going to be licensing a business. So people don't really know, or I mean, maybe some people do, but I don't think it's a commonly known thing that you can actually hire an astrologer to identify certain dates where it's better to get married, it's better to apply for jobs, it's better to incorporate a business. And there are certain times in the year in which you want to avoid that, and certain times in the year, depending on what's going on in the sky, where you definitely want to take advantage. So, for example, at the time of this video, I'm shooting in January of 2023, and all planets are direct until April 21st, which is great. There's momentum to get what you need done. There's momentum to really not have like any potential setbacks that certain transits might have. So for example, depending on your own natal birth chart and what your chart is also speaking to, most people don't do well with Mercury retrogrades, but most people that do have Mercury retrograde natally in their chart, they do well with Mercury retrogrades. So there's a bit of symbiosis that wants to be had between your own personal natal birth chart and then the chart that you are building for your business, because you then can have that business answer to you from an energetic standpoint. So Mercury retrograde is also one of those transits that you would consider. You would also want to consider at what time you are licensing the business. So you want to think about where the moon is at. So is the moon happy in the sign that it's currently in? And that's a quicker moving transit as well. So that one changes signs every 2 to 3 days, whereas Mercury retrograde tends to stick, Mercury transits tends to stay for, depending on the sign and what's going on, 4 weeks to 6 weeks at a time. You're also thinking about where certain planets like Venus and Jupiter are at. So for example, Jupiter, if it's in certain placements, you know that in the houses that it falls into, depending on the time that you're casting the chart, you can identify potentially how much money can be made. And so there's also the Venus placement that takes effect, and then there's also placements of where Mars and Saturn, so the malefics as we would call them, whereas the benefics are Venus and Jupiter. So configuration of where those planets will fall is important to know about as well, and it's all very it's possible to select certain dates that would be in your best interest, depending on how well you know your chart. So yeah, or you can just hire an astrologer to do it for you and to give you a couple of different options of what charts might be best. So there's kind of a combination between electional and, I'm going to not say this correctly, horary astrology that can be had depending on how to best serve the clients and your needs. So yeah, to summarize, so identifying where the moon is at, where Venus and Jupiter fall in the chart, also considering Mars and Saturn and their placements, and just knowing to officially license a business at certain times in the year where there's not a lot going on in the sky. So for example, right now until April is a great time because all planets are direct, and then after that you'll have to consider other placements and transits for just to see how they would affect you and the long-term energy and the spirit of the business that wants to come to life in the earthly plane. So yeah, that's what I got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know in the comments below if it resonated, if anything was unclear, and thank you for watching.